Mayor Adams, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor Adams, recently you went to Rome, you went to the Vatican where you met with Pope Francis, an advocate for immigrants. What were the key takeaways from how they handle the surge in immigrants that you could implement here in New York City?
A couple of things. The right to work. I just cannot say this enough. Dignity lies in the ability to provide for your family. And no matter where you come from on the globe, when you come to participate in the American dream, the precursor to that dream is your ability to work. And what they're doing in Rome is that 2 months upon arrival, they help learn Italian and they transition them into locations so they can be employed and actually participate in the country. And that was a huge takeaway for me. We've done an amazing job, 195,000 migrants and asylum seekers from Central South America, from West Africa, China, Ukraine. But the failure of allowing people to work is something that I think we need to correct.
How fast? 2 months, just like in Italy, after 2 months? Or how fast should they get that work permit?
I believe after they do, when you parole people into the country, what many people don't realize, migrants and asylum seekers are paroled into the country legally. When we parole you into the country, what we should do down at our southern borders, we should tell the person that's being paroled in, here's where we need you in America. We have states and municipalities where they are lacking employees and they're lacking population. Let's allow them to go there for 3 years. They can work there, they can stabilize themselves, and then they can go wherever they want in the country. So it's a win-win. We're allowing you to come into the country, and we're also helping when we need populations and employees in our country that we now have a perfect combination. And so it could be the month you come in after you're vetted. Whatever time it takes to do an expeditious vetting, we should allow people to get to training and work.
And that's part of your deep compression strategy.
Yes, yes, it's so important. Right now, we've allowed the crisis to control us and not see the opportunity. When I speak with mayors across the globe and some of the international leaders that have stood with me, there was just a letter from Congressman Espaillat that are calling for expeditious work authorization. But when I speak with my leaders across the country, they're saying, Eric, we will love to take migrants and asylum seekers, but we can't have people come to our municipalities and they can't be employed. They have to sit around all day. That is just not right to do. Now think about this for a moment. We've received thousands of Ukrainian residents because of the war. They came to America. Many have come here. You don't hear about them because they're allowed to work. So if you could work from Ukraine, why can't you work from Ecuador, Venezuela, Mexico, Colombia? It just doesn't make sense.
Now, recently, President Biden announced a new rule where he's looking to restrict asylum and also expedite deportations. Now, this rule would control immigration. Would this help prevent the surge here in New York City?
Still analyzing. Our team is looking at it to see what the impact is. We received 1,100 last week. We're still receiving almost 4,000 a month. It's important that whatever is done at the border does not unfairly impact the cities like Chicago, Denver, Houston, Los Angeles. All of these cities are dealing with the constant flow that are coming to their municipalities.
Now, you've mentioned the work permits, but what else is needed from the federal government to help New York cope with this crisis?
Money. This is a national problem, and cities should not have to reach into their coffers to pay for national problems. Immigration is a national issue. Mayors don't control our borders. We don't control who's allowed to come into our cities. I can't stop buses from coming in. We must give them the basic needs. We will educate the children, over 38,000. We're going to do everything that we're supposed to do. And our humanitarian response has been amazing. As I stated, international long-standing immigrant rights advocates have come to the city and walked through what we are doing. And they they have stood with us and said this city is leading the way. They sent people to be trained by what we're doing. But the federal government should be paying for this, should not come out of our budget. $4 billion we spent already.
Who's footing the bill? And how much has the federal government paid so far?
We spent $4 million over the last fiscal year. This is coming directly out of taxpayers' coffers, and it could have an impact. We've been able to pay for it without any layoffs, without any increases in taxes, but it's not sustainable to continue to flow. As I stated, 1,000 last week, 4,000 a month, sometimes even higher. We get spikes over during the summer months, so it becomes extremely costly. We're seeing what's happening to cities across the country that's impacted.
I'm sorry, you said $4 million.
$4 billion.
You said, yes. You said
$4
million. Yeah,
Thank
I
you
heard
for
billion.
correcting me.
So can you tell me, you said the city has spent almost $4 billion in
Yes.
services for migrants. Who's footing the bill, and how much has the federal government paid for?
The city is footing the bill. New York City taxpayers are footing the bill. We realize that the city needs help with the economic engine of the state, and during the last budget, they allocated money for us as well. But we need the federal government to also pick up its share.
There has been reports that the Tren de Aragua is here in New York City and that is teaming up with the very dangerous MS-13. Can you confirm those reports, and what should New Yorkers know?
Yeah, first, you are accurate in MS-13 being extremely dangerous. A lot of violent crimes, particularly on Long Island, has involved MS-13, and a few Trinitarians are here in the city as well. We are confirming if the gangs are actually aligning themselves. We are aware that there are gangs that have come through, and we're looking at the extent of what they're doing. We took down one group that was stealing phones and identity thefts and other items such as expensive watches, but we're exploring what is the extent of this.
But Tren de Aragua, can you confirm that the Tren de Aragua is here in New York?
We're not 100% sure. We may find one or two members, but we want to see how extensive it is.
Now, you were in policing for 22 years. Why is it that although the overall crime rate here in New York City has dropped, why is it that the perception is that the city is still unsafe?
I think it's a combination of things, and I talk about this over and over again because public safety is not only the stats, it's also how people feel. And it takes a while before people go from how they felt to how they're feeling. And there are three areas that we're impacted on our city. One is the extreme recidivists. When you looked at Officer Jonathan Dillard, who was shot, Detective Jonathan Dillard, who was shot, the person who shot him was arrested 20 times. The person who was in the car with him was out on a gun charge, and there was another gun found in that car. We're finding far too often these violent acts are people who have the same profile of repeated arrests. We must address these repeated offenders. 542 people who are arrested for shoplifting in the city were arrested over 7,600 times. That's the type of extreme recidivism we're talking about. Second are those with severe mental health illness, and they are carrying out these random acts of violence. And we don't want to demonize the group, but if they're not getting the care that they deserve, these random acts of violence play on the psyches of New Yorkers. Nothing can traumatize you more than having someone shoved to a subway on the subway tracks when you take the subway every day, or someone punch a woman in the face as they're walking down the block. It plays on your psyche. And so, yes, we brought down homicides, we brought down shootings, we brought down 5 of the 7 major crime categories in the city. The city is the safest big city in America based on all standards. But as long as you have extreme recidivism, random acts of violence, and those with severe mental health illness not getting the care they deserve, it plays on the psyche of New Yorkers.
And you spoke about the subway, mobilizing the National Guard to the subway, and also the increased police presence is having an effect. Is the subway safe?
Yes, it is. And the governor decided to help out by bringing the National Guard in different locations. But the police department resurged 1,000 new officers there. We saw a double-digit decrease in the month of February, a double-digit decrease in the month of March. We're moving in the right direction. We saw the uptick in January, and we immediately responded to it. But the New York City Police Department is doing an amazing job there. Think about this for a moment. We have 4.1 million riders a day. We have 6 felonies a day. 4.1 million riders, 6 felonies a day.
So is it necessary to have that much police presence since according to U.S. law?
Yes, it is, because as we both share, public safety is not only what's actual, it's what's perceived. And people feel comfortable about seeing their uniform presence. It makes people feel comfortable, and I don't want to interpret how someone is feeling. And if the goal is that what we call omnipresence in policing, if you see that officer walk through the cars, if you see that officer standing on the platform, when you swipe your Metro card, if you're feeling safe, that's what I want you to do. I want you to feel safe, to push back on those crimes that are highlighted in our subway system.
Now let's talk about Latinos. What are the most pressing issues for Latinos here in New York?
Well, I think it's a combination. First we need to look at overall. Latinos want good schools, like everyone. They want safe streets, like everyone. They want to make sure that we have affordable housing. So I think sometimes we divide groups and separate them, but in reality, everyone wants a safe, clean city where they can raise healthy children and families. But then they want to see representation in their government. They want to know that it should not have taken 110 mayors before we have the first Dominican to be a deputy mayor. They want to see that the police commissioner is the first Spanish-speaking police commissioner in the history of the city. Or when you look at Commissioner Molina, to be the first Spanish-speaking to be in charge of the Department of Correction when he was there. So it's about specifically we want to see ourselves in the government, but at the same time, the same thing every New Yorker wants, my Latino brothers and sisters want. When I go and do my town halls and speak with them, if I do it in Washington Heights, it's no different if I'm in Sunset Park or if I'm in Brownsville. People want the same thing. They want to know how safe are my streets, how good are my schools, and can I afford to live in my city?
And that summarizes it perfectly. When you were elected, you won 60% of the Latino vote. That has plummeted according to the polls. How are you planning to regain back the support of Latinos when you're seeking re-election next year?
Well, when you go and look at that election last year or 2022, you'll see in 2021, it didn't start out with 60%. It started out, my numbers were low. There were many people that were in the race. It was very challenging. But I did what I always do. I got on the ground and I spoke one-on-one and I reminded people who I am. I am them. A young man growing up dyslexic, a young man that struggled in school and in life, went on to become a police officer, retired as a captain, a state senator, borough president, and now the mayor. That is the job I must do. And people are angry right now, and they have a right to be angry because I'm angry. We saw the projection of our city. We saw how we came through COVID. We saw how we have more jobs in New York City in the history of the city. We brought tourism back, people back on our subway system. We're outpacing the state and our children in reading and math. But then out of nowhere, we saw 194,000 people come in with $4 billion out of our budget that impacted some of the things that we wanted to do. So people feel angry, they feel frustrated. And many people thought, Mayor, why are you doing this to us? Without realizing that I did not have control of what was happening with the flow that was coming to our city. So
Latinos are angry about the surge in immigrants here in New York City? Is that what you're saying?
No, they're angry because of the impact of it. When you look at my Latino brothers and sisters from across our entire hemisphere, they know what it is to come here, a city of immigrants. This is a city of immigrants. Everything from our hospitals to our professionals, to our food service workers, they know what it is to work hard. But at the beginning of this journey, there was a perception that we're giving everything away and we are ignoring those who have been working hard. And people had that perception. It took a while for us to go into communities and start explaining to them, I can't stop buses from coming in. I cannot say that people cannot get 3 meals a day and a place to sleep. I cannot say that people can't be educated, and I cannot give people the authority to work. When that first was done, people thought that this was the mayor's responsibility. There was a lot of anger that came out of communities. Latino communities, like many of my immigrant communities, believe in hard work. They believe that you are supposed to work hard, give it your all, and fight for your children to have the quality of life they deserve. And there was a perception that our migrants and asylum seekers did not want that, when that was not true. Our migrants and asylum seekers were saying, we don't want anything free from you. We want to work. We came here to pursue the American dream, and you do that by being able to work your way up.
And hence why you're pushing for the work permits. Now, Mayor, there has been a lot of criticism due to your comments that immigrants could help solve the lifeguard shortage. You said because they were excellent swimmers. Can you please clarify, where did you get that they're excellent swimmers? Why did you say that? What did you mean by that?
Yeah, well first of all, the bigger picture is silly. We are in a society now where everyone has turned into the word police, and they want to pick apart and demonize everything you say. I'm probably going to be the last elected official that really ignore all of that noise. People know my heart. When I go to my, what we call humanitarian relief centers, and I ask my migrants and asylum seekers, how many of you are in the food service industry? How many of you are former, worked in hospitals? How many of you are swimmers? How many of you have been former writers? I see hands go up. We have people, particularly when you look at places like Venezuela, Ecuador, Colombia, Mexico, who are professionals in these different areas. They can fill our job vacancies. It has always been my push to continue to say, as my selling point, we have people who can fill the jobs we have vacant. We need lifeguards. We have swimmers.
Swimmers because they cross the Rio Grande swimming? Is that why you said that?
No, and that's silly for people to even equate that. No. When I talk to my West Africans, many people don't realize we have West Africans who are migrants and asylum seekers, not only Central and South America. That's the mind of folks that when I say people are good swimmers, they actually stereotype the group, that I was only talking about South and Central America. But do you see
how it could be construed as offensive because it's reinforcing a stereotype? Do you see that?
No, I cannot. No, I cannot, especially when you know who the man is. You know, if you know Mayor Adams, you know that I'm not trying to stereotype anyone. And let's say they are good swimmers. Why is that stereotype that if you're a good swimmer? That's like saying that someone is coming from India that's a good doctor. That's not a stereotype. No. What I said was, when I go to my migrants and asylum seekers, as I've been saying for almost 2 years now, let people work. They're ready to work, and they have the skills. So my West African brothers and sisters saying, we know how to swim. You know, they're ready to fill my lifeguard shoes.
Yeah, but it's a sensitive subject within our community. We've reported extensively on thousands of people drowning in the Rio Grande trying to get here. So given the hardship that migrants subject themselves to get to the United States, it's a sensitive subject. So you don't see how it could be offensive.
I respect the sensitivity, and I would never interpret someone's pain for them. But those who criticize me, they didn't go to the Darien Gap. I went to the Darien Gap. I spoke to people who crossed the Darien Gap. I went to Ecuador. I communicated with those who are migrants and asylum seekers. I spoke to those in Colombia. I know what they're going through. People want to criticize those of us who are on the front line. And if I'm defined by saying, let's allow people to work, and people want to take a terminology and change that, they can go right ahead. That is not how I govern. I govern by being honest, authentic, and truthful. Those who want to sit back and say, let's wait for a sentence that Eric say that we could attack them, I say to them, save your energy and go down to the Darien Gap, and let's help people who are trying to find that freedom like I did.
Mayor Adams, you recently said that Rikers was ready, that New York was ready in case President Trump violates the gag order again and has to be housed in Rikers. How is the Corrections Department preparing for something so unprecedented?
And that's another area that, when people ask me about President Trump, I was very clear that this is not about President Trump. This is not about who's incarcerated. I said we are ready no matter who is incarcerated, because I'm not going to get into what's happening on a trial. We have a criminal justice system. Let it handle the system. And so when you have people that all of a sudden say, Eric said Rikers is ready for Trump, that is not what I said. I was very clear. No matter who is placed in Rikers, we have a professional there and our commissioner, and she's going to handle that. No matter who it is, we're going to follow the rules and protect people like we do every day. We are in a sensationalism, journalism society right now. This is the Twitter universe. You know, people believe, let's make it as sexy as possible. And as the mayor, if I allow myself to be distracted with people trying to see how many clicks they can get, I would never be able to deal with the city.
Mayor, but it's a valid question because he's violated those gag orders many times, and Judge Merchan has threatened him that he could send him to jail if he violates those gag orders again. So it's a valid question.
Yeah, and we're just going to have to differ on this. I don't think it's a valid question. The valid question is, Eric, can you protect whoever's in Rikers Island, no matter who it is? When you start zeroing in, if the person is a president or if the person is a messenger, it doesn't matter to me who you are. If you're in place in Rikers Island, I have to protect you. And I'm not going to allow people to say, well, are you going to protect someone just because they are a president, or are they going to protect someone because they are a messenger? No. I was very clear. No matter who it is, the judge will do what he does. My correction officers are going to do what they're going to do.
Mayor, there was criticism recently because of how the New York Police Department responded to the protests, the pro-Palestinian protests in Columbia University. Any lessons learned?
Yes. I believe we should have moved in sooner. If we would have gotten authorization. Many people didn't realize we were not allowed to go on the college campuses without the permission of the presidents. We communicated with them, and one of the biggest things I told them is don't allow this to fester and grow. And I'm hoping this is a learned experience, because immediately after we addressed the Columbia issue, all of the other colleges immediately said, let's get this resolved. Protest is important. It's one of the foundations of American experience. Not only have I protested, but I protected protesters as the police officers. But what we saw happening on the college campuses were going beyond the right to speech. When you start having people break into buildings, destroy properties, using hateful terminologies of destruction of America and destruction of Israel, I think there's a radicalization of our young people that's taking place that we better not ignore. We better be conscious of it. And there were outside agitators that was fueling some of this hate that we're seeing.
Was the Strategic Response Group a unit that has been called by Human Rights Watch as violent, overfunded, and unaccountable? Was it necessary to use the SRG to crack down on these protests?
Well, using proper police practices does not determine what's the name of the unit. So people want to say, well, why did you use SRG? You can use PPG or CCE. The unit doesn't matter. The tactics are important. And whenever you're going into an unforeseeable circumstance, you don't know what's behind closed doors. You don't know what was inside those tents. You want to have the proper use of force to send the right message. If you are undermanned, now you have a problem. And some people who have not practiced police practices don't really understand that concept. You will look and say, why is there so many police? There's a principle behind public safety to say have the right manpower so you don't have to call for reinforcement because it got out of control.
And finally, with 2.2 million Latinos here in New York City, what do you love the most about our culture?
So many things. You know, I think that number one, authentic. And what people don't realize, the Latino community is not monolithic. People automatically think that it's just one community. My Dominican brothers and sisters, you know, it's different from my Puerto Rican, my Ecuadorians, my Colombians. You know, there's a different energy based on the various communities. And if you're not conscious, you will miss it. But I spent a lot of time in my Latino community, and I love everything from the dance, from the food, to just being authentic. And I love family. There's this sense of familiar is everything, and the relationship with the grandmothers, just the relationship with moms and dads are fine, but there's something about the grandmas that means so much, from teaching how to cook, to being there to lay on the lap when you're feeling in a painful time, to lifting you up. When I think about the Latino community, I think about the grandmother. That is something that I always see and hear people finally talk about.
Family is very, very important to us, definitely. In any particular food that you like?
A couple of pasteles. I know I probably butchered the name, but I like it.
I don't know what that is. Oh, pasteles.
Yeah, pasteles. How you pronounce
Pasteles.
it? Okay. Fried plantains is the favorite. And who doesn't like some good beans and rice?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mayor, for your time. Thank you. Thank you
Good
for
to
being
see
with
you.
us.